Number 7. Owen Rockwell. On August the 24th of 2021, a fiery crash on a roadway near Miami, Florida, resulted in the death of an innocent driver. The victim collided directly into a vehicle that was traveling the wrong way down an express lane. The reckless driver responsible for the crash was 38-year-old Owen Rockwell of Collier County. At roughly 5 a.m. in the morning, witnesses watched as Rockwell made a U-turn near the Miami Gardens exit of I-95 and began driving south on the highway's northbound lanes. As Rockwell approached the Golden Gates interchange, he slammed into the front end of a Subaru SUV while traveling at an extremely high speed. The impact launched the Subaru over the edge of the highway overpass, causing it to plummet nearly 85 feet to the ground below. The vehicle landed on its roof and subsequently burst into flames. A road ranger named Larry Cherry was coincidentally in the area when the accident occurred. He ran to the car, hoping that he might be able to rescue its passengers. He managed to pull 41-year-old Ed Gonzalez from the back seat of the burning car, but he was unable to extricate the driver, who was killed in the blaze. Gonzalez was taken to Aventura Hospital in critical condition. He continued to receive treatment in the months following the brutal accident. A GoFundMe campaign was started by Gonzalez's family to help alleviate the financial burden brought on by their medical bills. Rockwell received treatment for his injuries as well, but he was later arrested at the hospital and charged with vehicular manslaughter. Florida police reportedly discovered an empty beer bottle in his vehicle, and officers also noted the distinct smell of marijuana emanating from inside. Number 6. Tommy Lyon. Tommy Lyon and Emily Colley were on a dream getaway in Phuket, Thailand, in February of 2017 when tragedy struck. The Australian couple was visiting Kata Beach that day and decided to rent a pair of jet skis. After the couple had been driving their jet skis for not even a few minutes, they collided with each other at a high speed. 20-year-old Emily was thrown off and was pulled unconscious from the water by first responders, while 22-year-old Tommy came away relatively unscathed. Lifeguards performed CPR on Colley until paramedics arrived, and she was then loaded into an ambulance. Tommy joined her in the ambulance as he broke down in tears. She was rushed to a nearby hospital but pronounced dead on arrival. The neck and shoulder injuries she had incurred turned out to be too severe. Tommy later explained to police that the bright reflection of the sun on the water had made it impossible for him to spot his girlfriend. Tommy took full responsibility for the accident and was quick to apologize to Emily's family. Her family went on to encourage local authorities to consider the matter an unfortunate accident, but Tommy was charged with reckless driving, causing death nevertheless. Tommy was facing a sentence of up to 10 years but was back in Australia the next month. So it's believed that the authorities gave in to Colley's family's outspoken desire for Tommy not to be punished for the incident. Number 5. Cynthia Covert. 58-year-old Cynthia Covert of Johns Island, South Carolina, was killed by an alligator behind her friend's house on Kiowa Island in May of 2020. Covert had traveled for an at-home nail appointment for one of her clients when the fatal attack occurred. According to the homeowner, the manicurist began acting strangely after she'd finished doing her nails. She noticed an alligator located in the pond behind the house and suddenly became fascinated with it. She started taking photographs of the dangerous predator, inching closer and closer to it until she was waist deep in pond water. Covert's friend began pleading with her to get out of the water, recounting how she had just seen the alligator grab a deer from the exact spot where she stood. Covert ignored the warnings and continued to move closer to the gator, trying to touch it with her hands. Suddenly, the animal seized Covert's left leg in its jaws, pulling the woman below the surface. Her friend's husband and a neighbor who'd heard the commotion managed to pull Covert out of the water for a brief moment by tossing a rope down to her. The gator clamped on the beautician and pulled her back in. It then began to death roll her violently by twisting and turning its body. Police officers and firefighters eventually arrived at the house, but not in time to save the woman. They waited roughly 10 minutes for her body to resurface, at which point they shot the animal in the head to free Covert from its grasp. She was pronounced dead at the scene. An autopsy determined that the ill-fated woman had drowned. Number 4. Parvet Gala Baria. A 60-year-old Indian farmer named Parvet Gala Baria retaliated against a snake that had bitten him by killing it with his teeth. In July of 2019, Barria was out in the fields with a group of villagers from the Mahasagar district when the workers spotted a snake emerging from behind a truck that was being used to load maize. The other farmers fled in fear of the dangerous animal, but Barria stood his ground, boldly claiming to have handled snakes before. He picked the serpent up with his bare hands in a reckless attempt to move it away from the work area. The venomous snake lunged at the farmer, biting him in the hands and face. An enraged Barria then plunged his own teeth into the slithering attacker, fatally injuring it. The man was rushed to a hospital in Lunawada, but doctors' attempts to save his life proved futile. The venom from the snake's fangs had already wrought havoc on Barria's body, and he passed away within hours. Number 3. Andrew James Rodriguez. A 58-year-old man traveling on a moped in Las Vegas, Nevada was fatally struck by a drunk driver that was more than 3 times over the legal speed limit. Walter Richard Anderson was riding his 225-pound Tao scooter along Russell Road in southwest Vegas just before midnight on June the 5th of 2021. The driver that struck him was Andrew James Rodriguez, age 33, who'd gotten behind the wheel of a 2017 Lamborghini Huracan while intoxicated. He and a female passenger were making their way to a party across town. The stretch of road where the accident took place had a posted speed limit of 45 miles per hour. Rodriguez pushed his limit to 141 miles per hour in the moments before he collided into the back of Anderson's moped. The initial impact was so powerful that the scooter actually became lodged under the Lamborghini. The sheer blunt force trauma generated by the crash killed Anderson instantly. Police officers who arrived at the scene recounted that Rodriguez's eyes were noticeably bloodshot and noted a pervasive smell of alcohol on him. He was arrested on charges of reckless driving and driving under the influence. Number 2. The New York City subway surfer. A 32-year-old man attempting to ride on the top of a New York City subway train car plummeted to his death on October the 2nd of 2021. In the early morning hours, the thrill-seeker, who was not immediately identified by police, climbed on top of the J train traveling southbound and began subway surfing as it circulated on its daily route. As the subway approached the Williamsburg Bridge, which connects Manhattan and Brooklyn, the rider lost his footing and fell from the top of the car to the northbound tracks below. He was subsequently struck by an oncoming train as he lay injured on the railway. The New York Police Department was notified of the incident via a 911 call placed at around 4:30 a.m. Officers found the man unconscious and unresponsive on the tracks. Emergency medical personnel pronounced him dead at the scene. The authorities determined there'd been no foul play involved in the unfortunate incident. Number 1. Stephanie Mayorga and Paige Escala. A couple from Wilmington, North Carolina, mysteriously went missing for 3 weeks after embarking on an excursion to celebrate their engagement. 27-year-old Stephanie Mayorga and Paige Escala, age 25, were last spotted by a surveillance camera climbing into the latter's dark gray Dodge Dart at about 9 p.m. on April the 15th of 2020. Later that same night, a 911 call was placed by someone who claimed to have witnessed a vehicle blow through a stop sign at staggering speed and subsequently crash into the woods near an intersection. A team of emergency responders that included police officers, firefighters, and a medical crew were dispatched to the location around midnight. Upon arriving at the intersection, however, the authorities found no signs that a collision had occurred, as the 911 caller had reported. Officers responded to what was deemed a more urgent call after spending fewer than 8 minutes at the scene. The couple's roommate hadn't reported the women missing until April the 19th, as she was under the impression that one needed to wait a period of 72 hours before filing a missing persons report. A nationwide search for Mayorga and Escala was then set in motion. It wasn't until May the 4th, 20 days after their sudden appearance, that any significant headway was made in the investigation. Officers returned to the same intersection that had been previously visited by first responders on April the 15th. This time, however, investigators used machetes to hack through the thick vegetation that was growing off the side of the road. They went into a marshy area that was the entrance to a marina on the Cape Fear River. They soon discovered the couple's wrecked vehicle nestled deep within the dense woods. The women's decomposing corpses were still inside the car. The police used data collected by the car's computer to establish that Mayorga, who was behind the wheel at the time of the crash, had been traveling at roughly 103 miles per hour in the moments before the deadly accident. Investigators confidently determined that aside from speed, alcohol was a likely contributing factor in the wreck. as several open beer bottles were found inside the vehicle. The Wilmington Police Department came under heavy fire in the incident's aftermath. Members of the public strongly criticized the department's failure to conduct a thorough search of the area surrounding the intersection on the night they'd been first called to the scene. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be trapped in a hungry lion's den for 10 minutes or tightrope across the Grand Canyon? Let us know in the comments section below.